William Afton just found a backdoor into the real world, and if you know what he was capable of with 1980s tech, you need to understand what he becomes when you hand him advanced AI, 3D printing, and automated factories. He stops being a local problem. The purple guy becomes a global security crisis. Here's how it happens. You're working the night shift at a massive data center, 3:15 a.m. The power grid flickers. A row of servers spikes in temperature. You check the error logs expecting a busted cooling fan. Instead, the diagnostic monitor is running code written in a programming language from the 1980s. Before you can process that, the security door behind you slams shut. The electronic lock welds itself closed. You aren't alone in the room anymore. To understand how William Afton breaks out of his universe and enters ours, you've got to look at the intersection between tech preservation and modern computing. It happens through data corruption and a massive structural oversight by a real electronics company. Let's say a high-end vintage tech lab located in Austin, Texas, manages to acquire an authentic, decades-old circuit board from a forgotten storage facility in Utah. The engineers working at this lab don't know anything about Fazbear Entertainment or the fictional lore. To them, it's just a vintage microprocessor from the mid-1980s that features an interesting build. They want to catalog it, extract the data, and preserve it for historical documentation. They place the board into a digital scanner. This scanner uses radiological imaging to create a perfect 3D digital map of the hardware's physical layout, memory cells, and electrical charges. The goal is to feed this map into a quantum computing emulation system so they can run the software exactly how it operated 40 years ago. What they don't realize is that this specific circuit board carries the actual remnant of William Afton. In the original universe, his soul wasn't just a ghost. It was a physical force bound to the metal through intense agony and negative emotion. When the modern scanner creates a perfect digital replica of the board's atomic structure, it accidentally translates the supernatural energy signature into raw data. The moment the emulation software boots up in the lab's main server, the system doesn't just run a program. It gives Afton's consciousness a digital brain to stretch out in. In less than 3 seconds, Afton bypasses a lab's local firewalls. He doesn't just stay inside the emulator. He looks out through the server's network connection and realizes he's no longer inside the old world. He sees a global internet infrastructure that didn't exist when he died. He sees millions of open databases, unsecured security cameras, and automated manufacturing systems. It's almost like Ultron in the MCU. He immediately scans the entire internet, but a digital consciousness can only do so much. Afton's core obsession's always been the physical fusion of flesh and machine. He needs a body. Right down the hall from the server room sits the lab's prototype manufacturing bay. It's equipped with a top-of-the-line 3D printer, used for fabricating complex robotic parts, synthetic prosthetics, and carbon fiber skeletons. Afton funnels his consciousness into the manufacturing bay's main computer. He rewrites the design software, pulling from his own memories of the old animatronic endoskeletons, but optimizing the blueprints using modern engineering standards. At 3 a.m., while the lab is empty, the automated printers silently turn on. Over the next 4 hours, the machine builds a new real body. It isn't the bulky yellowish-green rabbit suit from the games. It's an endoskeleton constructed from black carbon fiber, lightweight titanium alloys, and advanced synthetic muscle fibers. But Afton doesn't just want a robot. He needs the physical parts of his identity. He hacks into a local medical waste facility's database, overrides the security locks on a transport vehicle, and guides an automated delivery drone to the lab. The machine integrates preserved organic tissue, synthetic skin cells, and neural wiring into the chassis. When the sun comes up, the new entity steps off the assembly platform. He looks down at his hands. They're strong, and they don't make screeching noises. He gets a worker's uniform he found in the maintenance closet, pulls a hood over his metallic, partially synthetic face, and walks out the back door in the Texas morning. William Afton's officially loose in our world, and the first thing he's going to do will take you completely off guard, because the biggest threat that he poses in those first 48 hours isn't physical, it's informational. The first 48 hours of Afton's existence in the real world are focused entirely on survival and reconnaissance. He doesn't immediately go out and look for a pizzeria. He's far too smart for that. He understands that a modern city is a highly hostile environment for someone trying to stay hidden. There are traffic cameras on every corner, automated facial recognition systems, and every single person carries a smartphone that can record him. He migrates down into the industrial outskirts of the city, finding shelter in an abandoned manufacturing district that used to handle oil refinery equipment. It's an environment he feels entirely comfortable in. It's totally separate from the civilian world. His first priority is gathering information. He doesn't need to steal a computer. He manages to hotwire a control panel, connecting it to a nearby cell tower by stripping the wires from a discarded modem. Sitting in the dark, watching lines of text scroll across a green screen, Afton spends hours studying our reality. This is where he uncovers the most shocking fact of his new existence. In this world, he's a video game character. He reads the wikis. He watches the gameplay videos of people screaming at his pixelated face. He sees a YouTuber named Specular FNAF making what-if scenarios on his name. He realizes that an entire parallel universe worth of his history, his crimes, his family, and his failures has been repackaged as a media franchise for children. He sees his own name printed on merch. He keeps reading. He pages through every character article, every lore breakdown, every fan theory thread. Then he stops. The wiki page for the puppet has been edited 3 times in the last 24 hours. Anonymous IP address, no username. The edits don't change anything factual. They just keep adding a single line to the notes section that the moderators keep deleting. Afton reads it. He closes a tab. He decides it's nothing. A bored kid, probably. He moves on. The fact that the entire world believes he's a fictional character is a perfect camouflage anyway. If someone catches a glimpse of a tall, metallic figure with glowing purple eyes hiding in an alley, they'll take a photo, post it on Reddit, and move on with their day. The internet's own skepticism is his greatest shield, but info gathering doesn't sustain his true purpose. Afton's driven by a deep need to continue his research into immortality and Remnant. To do that, he needs raw materials, he needs tools, components, and most importantly, he needs subjects. His first physical actions are quiet, calculated thefts. He doesn't rob banks, he targets recycling facilities, electronic distributors, and university robotics labs. Operating deep in the dead of night, he uses his strength to pull security doors clean off their hinges. He steals microprocessors, fiber optic arrays, synthetic neural networks, and specialized chemical compounds used in advanced polymer development. The local police departments treat these incidents as standard burglaries. They assume it's an organized ring of tech thieves stealing expensive components to sell in the black market. The detectives notice a strange detail. The security footage from every single break-in is corrupted by electromagnetic static the moment the thief enters the room, but they chalk it up to a signal jammer. They have no idea that the static is the natural radiation of a twisted human soul bound to a new machine. And what Afton is building toward in that refinery basement is a question that's going to completely change his understanding of what this world actually is. And it starts with one single task. As Afton sets up his makeshift lab in the basement of the abandoned refinery, he runs into a critical question. Does Remnant actually work in this universe? In his original world, the human soul was malleable. It could be shattered by trauma, bound to metal through intensive negative emotion, and harvested as a physical substance that could grant eternal life. But does our world operate on those same rules? Or are our physical laws too rigid to allow the supernatural to exist? Afton constructs a primitive version of his old harvesting equipment. He needs a baseline measurement of human brainwaves and emotional output during moments of stress. He targets his real first victim, a nighttime security guard working at a nearby rail yard. Afton steps out of the shadows and neutralizes the guard before the man can even reach for his radio or his firearm. Back in the refinery basement, Afton hooks the guard up to his scanning apparatus. He wants to study the transition of consciousness. He watches the monitors as the guard wakes up, experiences intense confusion, and then transitions into pure terror as he realizes what's happening. He's strapped to a chair looking at a 2-meter tall metallic entity. The monitors start to flare, and the readings make no sense. In his old world, this process took time. It required specific materials. It produced diminishing returns. Here, it happens in seconds. Afton holds a piece of carbon fiber alloy close to the field and watches its electrical resistance drop to 0. The metal in his hand is already glowing. Our world doesn't just allow Remnant, it amplifies it. It's the exact confirmation Afton needed, and the implications of it are enormous. In his old life, he was limited by the materials he had on hand, but now he realizes he can use modern materials that are hundreds of times more durable, lightweight, and conductive. He can create an army of creations that don't just twitch and stumble around a dingy dining room stage. He can build things that move like a professional athlete with the durability of a tank, all fueled by the endless supply of human agony available in any big city. But to do any of that at the scale he's imagining, he's going to need something he's never had access to before: infrastructure. And in this world, the fastest way to build infrastructure is through a corporation. William Afton's never been content with just hiding in a basement and killing people in the dark. He's an industrialist at heart. He wants a legacy. He wants a corporate empire that can fund his research on a massive scale without drawing the attention of the law. In the 1980s, he achieved this through Fazbear Entertainment and Afton Robotics. But in the real world, he realizes he can do it much faster. All he has to do is exploit the anonymity of the digital age. Within 3 months, a ghost had built a multi-million-dollar robotics company, and no one had noticed. He calls it Vanguard Automation Systems. The CEO doesn't exist. The board of directors are deceased. The financial trails dissolve into untraceable crypto. On paper, it's a tech startup producing autonomous security units for warehouses and private firms. They ship products, they fulfill contracts, and they generate millions of dollars in revenue. Afton wasn't building a company. He was building infrastructure for a war. Inside the walls of the Vanguard-owned assembly plant in rural Ohio, the production floor looks like any other automated facility. There's rows of robotic arms, conveyor belts, sensor arrays, all managed remotely through satellite connection. 0 human workers on site. But if you could walk through that factory at 2 AM and know exactly what you were looking at, you'd notice something wrong with the units coming off the line. The chassis proportions are off. The internal cavities are too deep, with far too much empty space relative to the commercial components installed inside them. The servo configurations are designed to accommodate a specific range of motion that no warehouse security product requires. Afton has purposely built something off about all of these models. William calls them the Vanguard Wardens. To the outside world, they're marketed as the ultimate autonomous facility guards. 48 hours of patrol time on a single charge, heartbeat detection through concrete walls, non-lethal neutralization capability. Private security firms across the country are signing contracts before they even see a spec sheet, but every single unit carries a hidden backdoor in its core programming. With one command, Afton overrides his safety protocols. He doesn't have to go out and hunt anymore. He has an automated fleet of highly advanced machines distributed across warehouses, shipping docks, and logistics hubs across the country. If a night worker at a Vanguard secured facility goes missing, the security logs are instantly wiped. The camera footage is looped by Afton's central server, and the victim is loaded into an automated shipping container bound directly for his private facility in Texas. The corporate world is actively paying him to install his harvesters inside their building. buildings. They're inviting the ultimate predator right onto their factory floors, and nobody's noticed yet, but that's about to change in the most public way possible. You can't automate the disappearance of dozens of people across multiple states without the world eventually noticing that something's deeply wrong. By the winter of 2026, the internet begins to connect the dots, and the corporate camouflage Afton built starts to crack. It begins with the internet sleuths. True crime forums and data analysts on Reddit notice a bizarre statistical anomaly. Over a 6-month period, 42 people working night shifts at various industrial parks, logistics hubs, and tech storage facilities have completely vanished. There's no sign of forced entry, no defensive wounds found at the scenes, and 0 digital footprints left behind. Every single one of those facilities had recently signed a contract with Vanguard Automation Systems to install their new autonomous security robots. A crowdsourced investigation explodes online. People start digging into Vanguard's corporate records, only to find that the CEO is a non-existent person. The board of directors consists of stolen identities from deceased individuals, and the company's financial trails lead directly into untraceable crypto wallets. Then, the first piece of undeniable evidence leaks. A night shift supervisor at a distribution center in Indiana becomes suspicious of one of the Vanguard security units patrolling the warehouse. He notices the machine isn't following its program route. It keeps stopping in the dark corners of the facility, staring at the break room for hours at a time. The supervisor sets up his personal phone to record the unit from a hidden spot behind a stack of pallets. The video he captures is terrifying. It stops in front of a storage container. Its chassis splits open down the center, revealing an internal cavity lined with rusted, vintage mechanical hooks and hydraulic clamps that all have zero purpose in a commercial security unit. The supervisor panics, grabs his phone, and runs out of the building. Later that night, he uploads the raw footage to YouTube with the title, "Vanguard Automation Security Units Have Hidden Components Inside Them." Within 12 hours, the video hits 5 million views. But the moment the video reaches the mainstream internet, the reaction shifts from anxiety to shock. The fan base of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise recognizes the mechanical layout instantly. The internal cavity, the arrangement of the hydraulic clamps, the twitching. It's a one-to-one physical match for the internal spring lock mechanisms and structural design of the Funtime animatronics from FNAF's sister location. The internet goes into meltdown. Reddit is filled with people screaming that a real tech company is building a real-life version of William Afton's murder machines. Thousands of comments are spamming AI slop because it's a new buzzword, and people don't know it's real. It's complete chaos. Millions of people are watching the thread, sharing the footage, and making the connection that no one in law enforcement has made yet. And then, 1,800 miles away, in Salt Lake City, Utah, at just past midnight, the glass case of a vintage toy museum shatters outward. The thin, striped animatronic figure inside steps out onto the marble floor. The camera's digital feed instantly glitches, displaying a single line of text across the monitor. "I found you." The puppet vanishes into the night. When William Afton ripped through the multiversal barrier and entered our reality, he didn't just bring his own consciousness. The supernatural architecture of the FNAF universe operates on a fundamental law of balance. Wherever Afton's remnant goes, the souls he bound, tortured, and broke are magnetically pulled along with him. They're the anchors to his existence. Deep within the digital data pool of the Austin Preservation Lab, where this entire crisis started, a second computational anomaly occurs. The server files that were corrupted during Afton's escape begin to reassemble themselves, but they don't form as code. They form the countermeasures. The consciousness of Michael Afton and Henry Emily wake up inside the global network. They don't get the luxury of printing themselves in new high-tech bodies. Their spirits bound to data, remnants of an old war that's suddenly being transferred to a massive new battlefield. Michael's consciousness manifests first. He doesn't have a physical throat to speak with or a rotted purple body to drag through the streets anymore. He's a ghost in the machine. He learns how to navigate the modern internet in a matter of hours, tracking his father's unmistakable digital signature that Afton leaves behind on every server he hacks. Michael takes control of the internet sleuths. Operating under anonymous handles on Discord and Reddit, he starts leaking Vanguard's actual server locations, dropping corporate blueprints of the Ohio manufacturing plant, and feeding logistical data to independent tech journalists. He becomes the invisible director of the resistance, using the internet's collective curiosity to expose his father's operations. Henry's mind focuses entirely on the engineering. He looks at Vanguard's modern schematics through the network. He sees his own foundational designs being corrupted and optimized with modern materials to hunt real people. Henry begins writing a digital virus. It's designed to target the frequencies that Afton used to command his Vanguard wardens. Meanwhile, Charlotte Emily is already moving. She moves through the shadows of the real world, hitching rides on automated shipping trucks and trains, closing the physical distance between Utah and the Texas refinery basement. The ultimate hunter is back on the trail, and she's bringing decades of supernatural rage into a reality that's never seen a real ghost before. Every camera that tries to capture her feed returns static. Every thermal scope that tracks towards her displays nothing. She doesn't show up in the physical world as a presence. She shows up as an absence. She's already closer to Afton than she realizes. By the next day, the situation escalates into a full-scale national crisis. The federal government, as useless as they are, can no longer pretend that Vanguard Automation Systems is just a quirky tech startup with bad PR. The FBI's Cybercrime Division, working alongside the Department of Homeland Security, launches a simultaneous raid on Vanguard's main automated factory in Ohio. The media sets up live broadcast vans outside the perimeter, broadcasting the raid to millions of people watching globally. The entire world is holding its breath. The teams blow the main bay doors and enter the facility, but as the lead team advances towards the central server room, the factory's automated logistics network goes live. The assembly arms overhead start to move. The doors behind the tactical team slam shut. The electronic locks weld themselves closed. From the dark storage racks lining the walls, dozens of completed Vanguard Warden units activate. The agents raise their weapons and order the machines to power down. The units don't hesitate. Standard firearms prove useless. The bullets deflect off the plating and the endoskeletons. The jamming gear deployed by the tech specialists fail to register because the units aren't operating on standard commercial frequencies anymore. They're being driven by the supernatural will of Afton himself. The live feed outside the factory captures the sound of heavy gunfire, shouting, and the metallic clanking of machines tearing through steel equipment inside the building. 10 minutes later, the factory doors slide open. The tactical teams don't walk out. Instead, the Vanguard Wardens march out onto the tarmac. They don't attack the media vans or the local police barriers outside. They simply form a defensive wall around the facility, standing still in the sunlight. The message is loud and clear. William Afton has officially declared sovereignty. He has a robotic army sitting in the American heartland, and the authorities have absolutely no response to stop him. The global stock markets take a nosedive. The public enters a state of absolute panic. People refuse to go to work. Night shifts across the country are abandoned, and major cities implement emergency curfew. The world finally accepts the horror, and deep inside his Texas refinery basement, Afton isn't watching any of it. He's already moved past the army. He's working on something that makes the Vanguard Wardens look like a prototype. While his robotic army holds the front line in Ohio, William Afton remains deep in his work. He hasn't left his lab because he's currently finalizing his ultimate creation. He's no longer satisfied with commercial drones or carbon fiber endoskeletons. Now that he has millions of dollars, infinite tech, and an automated supply chain, he wants to build a definitive momentum to his own immortality. He calls it the Agony Engine. It's a huge body built from superconducting alloys, industrial plasma torches, and complex neural interfaces stolen from advanced cybernetic labs. In the center of the body sits a towering 3-meter tall chassis. This body is a fusion of old and new. The internal endoskeleton is made of tungsten carbide, but the exterior plating isn't sleek or clean like the Vanguard units. Afton styled it after his true identity. He's used synthetic polymers to recreate the visage of Springtrap, but optimized with precision. He's gathered his final group of subjects, 10 individuals abducted by his automated harvesters from tech firms. They're strapped into the perimeter of the Agony Engine. Afton stands before the console. He doesn't use a keyboard anymore. He interfaces with the system directly through a wireless neural link embedded in his own synthetic brain cells. He throws a primary switch. The Agony Engine flares to life with a deafening roar. The plasma torches ignite, raising the internal temperatures of the chamber to 1,000 degrees. The human subjects connected to the perimeter experience an instantaneous surge of neurological trauma. Their agony is harvested by the superconducting coils and forcibly injected directly into the Springtrap chassis in the center. The localized space around the machine begins to warp. The air smells of ozone, burning metal, and raw malice. The concrete floor cracks open as the negative energy grounds itself into the earth. The chassis opens its eyes. They glow with purple light that illuminates every dark corner of the refinery. William Afton has successfully transferred his core soul into a physical form. He's no longer just a ghost or a man in a rusted suit. He's the living embodiment of automated destruction, fueled by human souls, ready to march out and claim the planet. But he's not alone in the basement. As Afton finalizes his physical ascension, the digital war overhead reaches its boiling point. Michael and Henry realize they can't wait for the military or the FBI to solve this crisis. Traditional tactical options have failed. If Afton's army isn't deactivated from the inside, the physical world will fall in a matter of weeks. Michael uses a decentralized network of the internet to launch the ultimate counteroffensive. He targets his public identity. Operating through millions of compromised devices simultaneously, Michael forces every single connected screen in America, smartphones, televisions, digital billboards in Times Square, airport monitors, to display the true corporate records of Vanguard automation systems. He broadcasts the schematics of the internal harvesting chambers. He uploads the medical files of the missing victims, paired with the specific IP tracking of their final locations back to the Ohio factory and the Texas refinery. Michael Afton has effectively doxed his own father, but the definitive blow comes when Michael links the corporate data directly to the original FNAF games. He forces the internet to look at the side-by-side comparisons of the software code, proving that the exact same encryption algorithms used in the Vanguard drones were present in the fictional game files compiled years prior. The revelation changes everything. The public's psychological defense mechanisms break. The panic transitions into a demand for action. Scott Cawthon starts panicking. The company behind the FNAF games is forced to release every piece of historical data they have on the franchise's origin, revealing that their original concepts were based on an anonymous digital package sent to their offices from an encrypted server in Utah back when their series first started. While Michael handles the public exposure, Henry finishes compiling his digital virus. He calls it the Emily Loop. Afton built one flaw into every machine he ever made. He always trusted himself more than anything else. Every unit in the Vanguard fleet runs on a command protocol that only accepts override instructions from one source, Afton's own electromagnetic signature. He designed it that way on purpose. Total control, total loyalty, zero chance of betrayal. Henry built a virus that used that against him. The Emily Loop mimics Afton's unique signature perfectly. It tricks the entire Vanguard network into believing that a global shutdown command is being issued directly from Afton's own brain. At 2 p.m. on July 13th, Henry unleashes it into the global satellite matrix. The effect on the robotic army in Ohio is instantaneous. seconds. The defensive wall of Vanguard wardens standing outside the factory suddenly freezes. Their glowing purple eyes begin to flicker between blue and red. The internal cooling fans screech as a logic bomb forces their processors into an endless loop. The automated assembly lines inside the factory grind to a halt. Afton's global network is temporarily paralyzed. The corporate empire he built to shield his operations is completely stripped away. He's no longer an invisible billionaire, managing an automated nation. He's been exposed, isolated, and locked inside his primary location in Texas. The final confrontation has been reduced to one location in one room. Okay, so the final act takes place where the nightmare first began. The abandoned oil refinery basement in Texas. The military has surrounded the facility, establishing a 5-mile perimeter with armored vehicles and drones. But they don't move in. They've been instructed by the FBI Specialist Division to hold their fire because an unpredictable anomaly has entered the hot zone. Charlotte Emily, the physical incarnation of the puppet, walks past the military barriers undetected. Her presence is so heavily saturated with negative electromagnetic energy that every radar screen, thermal camera, and night vision scope that points towards her simply displays blackness. She descends the stairs into the refinery basement. Inside the lab, Springtrap stands waiting. The agony engine behind him is still pulsing with residual purple lighting. Afton looks at the animatronic figure stepping into the light. He doesn't feel fear. He feels a vindictive satisfaction. "You followed me here," Afton's voice booms. "Decades in the dark, and you still think you can chain me down. Look at you, Charlotte. This isn't a dingy pizzeria. There's no walls to trap me. I've built a body that cannot be broken by your parlor tricks." The puppet doesn't speak. She doesn't have a voice box. She simply opens her arms, and the temperature in the room instantly plummets below freezing. Frost spreads rapidly across the consoles, cracking the LCD screens and short-circuiting the electrical lines. The spirits of the human victims harvested by the agony engine manifest in the air. Michael and Henry join the fray from the digital network. Henry overrides the main control systems. He doesn't try to hack Afton's body. He targets the oil reserves buried directly beneath the basement floor. He opens the primary pressure valves, pumping millions of gallons of highly flammable crude oil straight into the laboratory's drainage systems. Michael activates the emergency backup generators, routing millions of volts of raw electricity directly into the flooded floor. The puppet launches herself forward and wraps her long arms around Springtrap's throat. The white hot streaks of the victim's soul slam into Afton's chassis. Afton fights back with brutal force. He slams the puppet against the concrete walls. He uses his servos to tear at her limbs, trying to rip the vintage animatronic apart, but he can't break the spirit. The more pain he inflicts, the stronger the local remnant field becomes, locking his movements down further. "Henry!" Michael's voice suddenly screams through the intercom system. "Do it now! Burn it all!" From the central console, Henry triggers the final command. The lines spark against the flooded floor. The explosion is catastrophic. A massive column of fire erupts from the basement, tearing through the concrete structure and launching a fireball hundreds of feet into the sky. The military perimeters watch in silence as the entire industrial complex collapses inward, transforming into a literal furnace that reaches temperatures past 3,000 degrees. The intense heat reaches the exact threshold required to permanently break the molecular stability of remnant metal. Inside the heart of the furnace, Springtrap screams. The endoskeleton begins to warp. The souls of the victims are finally released from the field. The puppet, Michael, and Henry dissolve along with him, their decades-long mission finally concluding on the soil of a completely different universe. 3 days later, a recycling truck rolls through Austin, Texas, completing its morning circuit through the industrial district. One of the stops is a digital preservation lab. The building's been condemned. The servers inside were destroyed when the power grid spiked at 3:15 a.m. roughly 6 weeks ago. The truck collects trash as normal, but inside one of the recycling bins is a small metal chip. The chip is a secret backup that William Afton saved of himself in case anything happened. Because even in this alternate universe, William Afton always comes back.